Hello, family. What's up? It is Gina Ifoe, the one and only African superstar, back at it again. Today, I got Unpopular Opinions live. Shout out to the African superstar family. Guys, when you come in, you know the protocol by now. Get into the chat room, like the stream, be a part of this conversation. I want to talk about it. There have been so many current events, awful, terrible current events in the last, week that I have been made aware of just because of so many people, keeping me updated. Typically when wild and crazy things happen in America, and I can definitely speak for the expat community, definitely, a lot of people will bring that to our attention. Oh, have you heard this? Did you see this? And obviously, if you're on social media, they're going to send you the articles. They're going to send you the WhatsApp. They're going to keep you updated. So many things have happened this week alone. I got a message from a friend of mine that is here in the UK with me, telling me, you know what, I was considering to go to the World Cup next year in America because it's scheduled to be hosted in the US currently. And they said, you know what, in this week alone, and they listed off a lot of things that have happened this week. They said, you know what, I've decided I don't want to go to the World Cup in America. And that's the reality. So today I'm going to talk about my unpopular topic, which is in 2025, no American regrets moving abroad. Shout out to the family, guys. If you're here, you already know what to do by now. Hop in the chat room, greet me. It's the one and only. Yes, I'm trying to come a little bit more often for you guys. So this is an unfortunate reality. I know when I was preparing to move abroad, there were a handful of people that knew what I was up to. And for me at that time, a lot of people were very positive, people that were close to me, my family and friends, which does include a lot of world travelers, a lot of people that have lived abroad, people in the military. I've been fortunate to have friends that have had exposure, and that always makes a lot of difference when we're talking about topics such as relocating, migrating, and all that stuff. It's been my experience that people with very limited exposure, they usually have an apprehension, they usually have a negative connotation, they usually have a lot of ignorance surrounding moving abroad, what that means, what that's like, and so on and so forth. Guys, we're waiting for you in the chat room. I see some of you watching. So go ahead and greet me in the chat room, like the stream, be a part of the conversation if you're happy to see me live. Otherwise, I'll come another day. We know how this goes, okay? So please be an active part of our live streams. I remember when I first moved abroad in 2017. I moved from Ohio to the UK, moved to a town called Northampton. Shout outs to my UK viewers that have been with me through this journey, have come along with me through this journey. And I remember when I actually posted it online that I had moved to the UK. There were some people that were very upset, and I talk about it. Sometimes I got an email, a scathing, DM from a Facebook friend saying, you're not going to make it. Why would you leave the US to go to the UK? You won't be able to hack it. It's difficult in Europe. You're going to end up back in the States within a year. That was what, they were telling me. And we see many, many years later, pushing up, over nearing a decade, basically. I moved in 2017. We're now basically to the ending of 2025, and I'm still going strong, between the UK and Ghana, and very, very seldom do I come to the US. And I'm proud to say that, I don't regret my decision, and I definitely can speak on behalf of so many other people I know living abroad, everywhere from Africa to Europe. Even I know someone in the islands. Americans living abroad are so delighted that they are not currently going through, the situation in the States. And I know I have quite a few viewers from the West that come here, and, I'm by no means I'm trying to be disrespectful or anything like that. But it says a lot when people living abroad, they're so happy that they moved on to other places. And another thing I've noticed is that it seems to me that a lot of the people I've met personally that have moved abroad, a lot of them are just like me in regards to being quality of life people. The Western world cultivates a very work-centered individual. They do this in many ways. I mean, obviously, the cost of living, the expenses, and all those kind of things will make having to work or work full-time or work extensively be a part of your lifestyle just to survive. But there are so many people that outside of work don't have hobbies, don't have interests, don't travel. And I find that the people that have moved abroad, for them, quality of life, and just like myself, quality of life is so important to them that it's more important than the work-centered life, or maybe amassing a lot of material things or amassing a lot of, money or all these kind of things. People are into traveling. People are into relaxing. People are into experiencing. People are into history and learning and art. A lot of Americans or Western people that have moved abroad, this is a high priority for them. And when it comes down to that, a lot of us can easily say the lifestyle that we live abroad, we would not be able to live in the Western world full time, just because of the constraints and demands of living in those environments. It says a lot about the state of the United States. It says a lot about the mentality of a lot of the people, the environment that so many abroad, are rejoicing. They're not looking back. Now, obviously, many people will tell us, oh, you're going to miss America and you're going to come back and you're going to, it's not nice over there and it's expensive over there and the people don't like you. Yet it's still so many. I mean, and again, statistically, the U.S. had a record year for Americans requesting their passports, sending away their passports. They had the highest amount. I believe it was almost 2 years ago now. Americans in mass are traveling outside the U.S., looking for their options, migrating, getting their passports, and leaving. And it says a lot about the quality of life there. Big shout outs to the family, guys. Are you here? Let me see you in the chat room. Jennifer Edie, I can see you there, sweetheart. Thank you so much for always being on code. That's one of my, trusted family members. She's the one and only one. Let's get into the chat room, guys. Don't make me stop the show. Today, 2025, no American regrets. No American regrets. Okay? People that are living abroad, I mean, many people in America might think that we're going to end up with our tail between our legs and we're going to regret it. And, that life is just better in America, hands down, over any other places in the world. And unfortunately, a lot of people that have those opinions don't even know what the world has to offer. Don't even know what's out there. Don't even know what services for their children. Don't even know the differences. Don't even know that this widespread, violent outbursts that have become a part of American day-to-day life, it's not like that everywhere. Okay, everywhere is not experiencing school shootings every other day. This week in America, it has been an unprecedented week. And like I started this broadcast by saying, a friend of mine that lives in the UK that was planning on going to the World Cup that's scheduled for 2026 contacted me and said, this week alone, there was a sniper shooting, referring to Charlie Kirk. I did a whole live stream about his situation a couple of days ago, and I was calling him Chris Kirk. But that's how ignorant about him I am that I didn't actually know his name. But I was referring to Charlie Kirk for any of you guys that saw that episode and wanted me to correct that. I have done that. So Charlie Kirk was, assassinated on a live stream. I understand that he was having a conference or whatever, a meetup, and that happened to him. Then we had, guys, did you hear about the man who got beheaded in Texas? Hello, let me see a number one. Shout outs, guys. We have 10 of you here and we have one in the chat room. So please be an active part of what we're doing. I don't want to have to stop the show, but live streams require so activity, crowd support from the African superstar family. Hello. Did anybody hear about the man in Texas getting beheaded? Hello. Number one, it is unbelievable. You would think that it was made up if you didn't know that it was true. And I actually saw the video. I actually saw the surveillance video of this man being attacked. People were in the area while this criminal was hacking off this man's head in broad daylight, right outside of a hotel. After he successfully hacked the head off of the body, he then proceeds to kick the head like a soccer ball across the car park. We have the young lady who was stabbed to death on the train after work. We had a school shooting this week. Just 1 week. And I can tell you, obviously, I have stated in many, many episodes, I have valuables in the U.S. I have family there. Okay, for me, my family is most valuable in this world. So I can never have the perspective of, I'm out of there. I know looking back, because realistically, I have connections and ties there. But the reality is, those of us abroad, this decision that we've made, it continues to be the right decision as we see what is happening. And all I can continue to do is try to motivate those of you of whom understand my message. I'm by no means trying to convince those of you that have no interest in these options, or, you're kind of just set in stone that you just want to go on the path that you're currently on. But I know for me, I can only speak for me. Living abroad was not anything that I was very educated on growing up. It wasn't anything that I had in mind. I had the general go to school, get a job, get married, American dream outlook on my future and my world. That's what I set out to achieve. And it wasn't until like my early 20s, I started getting the reality that, how realistic is this thing? And I started seeing a lot of the disparities. I started to encounter a lot of the systematic racism, in the corporate world. And I realized that, how attainable, excuse me, how attainable are these goals going to actually be? I'm an action-oriented woman, solution-based. I had to look at it and look at the reality of, am I going to be able to achieve these things or what? Because the environment that I'm in is rather acting as a huge obstacle to me achieving my goals. It wasn't like, and it's never been, that Gina's not applying herself to her endeavors. Gina's looking for handouts. Gina wants something that she's not entitled to or she didn't earn. It's like Gina is actually overcompensating for her environment and yet is still not moving forward in the way she needs to be. And it was also taken into consideration the impact of the environment, not only on me, but on people from the past and other people that look like me. And realizing this system here that is going on is not, I couldn't make the connection from where I was to where I needed to be, and the actual, path that I needed to take. Because for me, I'm a very literal individual. When I start mapping out things and planning things, I can plan things down to the day. I can plan things down to the hour as to what I need to be doing to contribute to those overall outcomes. And, like I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, quality of life is huge for me. And I did not like the quality of life in America. And I found it overwhelming. I found it stressful. I found it races. I found, and I felt that I wasn't going to be able to change it because you see, even acquiring wealth and all that stuff in that situation, you then have the racial construct that begins to permeate your life. So there's no way to kind of supersede, in my opinion, the situation for what I was looking for. Okay, guys, we're going to stop the show because only Jennifer Edie is in here. Hello. You guys need to get into the chat room. Get into the chat room or else, because it's just not fair. Hello. Why? I'll give a commercial break and I'm waiting for you in the chat room. Big shout outs to the African Superstar family. What's up? Where y'all at? Where y'all at today? Big shout outs to the African Superstar family. Guys, I want to also let you know, Jennifer, I'm sorry, babe. I can't, and as much I love you, babe, it's difficult to have this conversation without anybody here. And it's saying that I have over 10 people viewing. So I don't know. Is it that I'm that amazing? You guys just want to watch me like a statue? What's up, Sankofa? Thank you for getting into the chat room. Hello. Big shout outs, guys. I would think you would be happy I haven't been coming live. I've barely been here on YouTube. I've been very engrossed in real life. I've been very engrossed in real life. And when I'm in my real life, there's not a lot of time for the cyber world because I put all my energy and focus on what I need to be doing to make sure I'm on track in real life. You know what I mean? Hello. Yes. No American living abroad is looking back at the U.S. currently and saying, damn, I want to head back. Damn, I regret this. Damn, I think my kids, we would have been better off in America. I can bet you money that those people, with me included, when we look back, we hear these crazy situations, we're thinking to ourselves, man, it only solidifies the decision that we made. Like, whoo, I'm glad I put rubber to the road. Some of you guys, I know a lot of you say in my comments that, you're interested in Africa. A lot of you, I want to travel the world. I want to, live abroad and all these kind of things, or at least you should start with a vacation first, start with visiting a place first. Okay. Cause migration is not a one size fits all. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people think that, some people just think, I've seen people in the comments in regards to Africa. It's like, oh yeah, I want to live in Kenya one day, and I want to also live in Ghana, and I want to live in South Africa. And it's like, do you know the logistics of all of that? Unless you're talking about, I want to tour, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to take a year off and travel the world, and I'll live in a country, a different country for each year. But actually the whole picking up, relocating, getting citizenship, getting your residency, settling down, finding housing or an apartment, all the actual structure that goes into it, getting your visa, all these things. It's not a pick up and go thing. It's something that requires a process. And the truth of the matter is, the world, we're in just such a prolific time right now. We're in such a historic time because, again, more Westerners than ever before in history, especially Americans, are putting their sights abroad. And this is the first time in history that has been recorded. As we know, most people in the world up till this point have wanted to move to America, and Americans have greatly been contained in the States. Apart from, those that are in the military, or some people that are entertainers, or, it's been a minority amount of Americans that have experienced living abroad currently. It's not, everybody knows that, world travel is not necessarily a huge priority of the average American in America. A lot of Americans pride themselves on being from America, staying in America, remaining there, and having no interest in foreign countries. But that is shifting because of the reality of what America's like. And I also think that social media has been a huge window into the reality of how many Americans are living, their situations, a lot of problems in the country that historically the international community has not been made aware of. They hear about this and this and this and this. And because obviously the West is a big, they have a huge investment in media. They've been controlling what goes in and what gets out. So the more you experience of the world, the more you can understand why a lot of people have this perception of America and why some people are diehard about moving abroad and they're going to spend their last money to try to make it happen, because in their mind, the problems that exist in their country, which some of those problems also exist in America, they exist in Europe, but the person in Africa never sees it. The person in Ghana never sees the homeless problem in California. The Mexican never sees the daily gun violence of Chicago. The Filipino woman, from the red light district, all she sees is passport bros coming over to Thailand and coming over to the Philippines and all this stuff, looking for women, splashing around money that's worth big money in their currency. So it gives this perception of what America's like. And now, unfortunately, a lot of the truth is coming out. We that have grown up there know what it is. And we've been know what it is. You know what I'm saying? But now I think more of the world is getting to know. And I can personally speak about the shift of people that I know in the UK. When I first came to the UK in 2017, and obviously at that time I wasn't living in London. I'm currently staying in London, but I was living about an hour and a half outside of London, kind of in a town called Northampton. So for many people I met in that environment, I was the first Black American they had ever met in real life, and or maybe American, because typically when Americans come to, England or even other European cities, a lot of them settle in the capital, a lot of them settle in the cities. They don't typically go out a bit further. So, they had real media expectations of me at that time. And a lot of what I was telling them of my personal experience and my outlook, it was just like so foreign to them because they were not versed on the reality of life there. I did meet a few people that said, oh, I've got relatives and, I know someone in Florida. I know somebody in New York. I know someone in Chicago. But, very, very surface. And now, from then till now, a lot of them are like, Gina, I get it. I understand. You were ahead of your time. I can relate to you now because what I saw, what I forecasted a long time ago based on reality, basically, reality and history, was that the direction of things was going in a way that I didn't want to, I didn't want to position myself into that environment because you see, a lot of people, shout out to Superstar Bella, mention our mission statement in the chat room. SMP is our mission statement. It means strategy, maturity, and patience. Big shout outs to y'all. I see y'all. Thank you, Selena. Thanks to the African Superstar family that's on code. I love you guys. I ask for your participation so I can see who's viewing, so I can greet you and thank you for your time and your investment into our platform and all of that. Big shout outs to you guys. You see, the thing is too, that a lot of people don't take into consideration because, I don't know if it's narcissism where it's like, that would never be me, that could never happen to me. I don't know. You have to, in life, you have to also take into consideration your environment. Okay, let me share one of my pro tips with you. You have to always take into consideration your environment. Okay. You have to look around and see what your peers are doing. You know, their reactions to things, their mentality to things. You know, you gotta pay attention to that, because sometimes what happens to you is not due to your own actions, it's due to your own environment. Okay. Let me give you an illustration. Shout outs to the family, guys. It's 14 of you here. Get into the chat room. Hello. Let me know where you're watching me from. And you can also shout out our mission statement. You can say hello. You can support the stream. If there's any other Americans living abroad, let me know in the comments box if you agree. Are you regretting that decision to move abroad? Or are you like, oh God, I want to go back to America. I want to go back. I miss it. Let me know. Either back me up or tell me I'm wrong. Tell me, Gina, you're wrong. America's the land of the free. It's opportunity. You know, I want to be in the front row to witness a sniper shooting at an event. I want to be there when somebody gets beheaded. I want, send my kids to school to be available for the next school shooting. Hello. I want to eat chemically modified foods and, get obesity and have heart disease. I'm inching for it. Let me know in the comments. Hello. You've got to pay attention to your environment. And that was huge for me, because I realized that one of the things that really, really got on my radar was the random crime, the mass shootings. I was concerned about being at the wrong place at the wrong time, because they're shooting everywhere. Shooting in schools and gyms and buses and trains. Shooting at grocery stores and movie theaters. Hello? I didn't never want to be anywhere where it started popping off, because it could pop off anywhere. Big shout out to the African Superstar family. If you're here, guys, let me hear you. Let me see you. Well, Swell says, have I looked up my folks here in the South? I don't really have a lot of roots in the South from what I know. I currently have family that lives in Louisiana through my stepdad's side of the family, but they even originate from like New York. My stepdad's side of the family originate from New York, and they came and settled in Ohio. So I really do not have a lot of connections in the South that I'm aware of. And obviously, my mother doesn't come from America. So her roots are not there either. So big shout out to Wellswell. I see you there. Thank you so much for getting into our chat room. What's up, guys? I just gotta say it. I just got to say it, because people were bitter at me when I made that decision, and people had a lot of chatter, and people had a lot to say. And some people didn't wish me well, and some people thought I was going to fail in my endeavors. And I'm just telling you that I don't regret the decision, and I can bet that so many others Americans that have moved abroad are with me. We're in solidarity, because the quality of life in the U.S. is wild. And yes, I recognize, well, everybody can't go, and, people's situations and stuff. And let me just say to you guys, let me say to anybody who's viewing me and, feels left out or feels offended by this message because of their situation. Listen, okay. When you feel left out of something, for instance, or you feel that you can't, change your circumstances, be encouraged that you can do something. Okay. There's always a solution to your problem, but it does first require you assessing your situation and coming to the realization. When I decided to move abroad, okay, which was in 2014, shout out to anybody. If I have anybody from the beginning stages of my channel, my previous channel, Let me see a number two, because I know I got long-standing viewers here. I got family from, I started on YouTube in 2013. I got people that range all the way back. So if you are a long-standing member of the African Superstar family, show your, rep your set. Let me see a number two. When I first decided in 2014 to move abroad, okay, let me give you a little context if you're new to my channel. I was in the process of going through a divorce at the time. I had never considered moving abroad, and I definitely didn't have the resources. I didn't have the finances. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know people from my family or my friends that were doing it. I was completely at block one. Okay. So I can't say I was at rock bottom because I still had income. I still had a place to live. I had my family. I had a car. But I was definitely in a rebuilding situation. Okay. At that time, I started the process, to get to where I am today. It took me a little under 3 years to get into position to move from the US to the UK. And even in that process, I had to innovate the path because I didn't know how to do any of it. So when people say things and you feel left behind because, your current circumstances don't permit that. So if I'm talking about visiting Ghana, I'm talking about moving abroad, I'm talking about traveling and all these things, you're looking in your bank account, you got a case of the shorts, pockets empty, bank account empty, up to your neck in debt. You got kids, you got this, you got that, and you're looking at, oh my God, I can't do this. So then immediately you get defensive, which is what a lot of people do. Okay, they're not in a position to do what you can do or have done, and they feel left out. You don't need to take my message any particular way. Start from square one. Okay, the first thing is, before you even have the resources, before you even have the money, is looking into it, finding out information. Okay, you know what? I'm really interested in, moving to Mexico. I'm really interested in moving to Ghana. I'm really interested in moving to the UK. Even if you scale back, I'm really interested in visiting. Take a trip. Because I don't know if it's Hollywood that has so many people in America just getting extreme with it. They see a YouTube video and they're like, I'm moving to Ghana tomorrow. One-way ticket. No. You're doing yourself a tremendous disservice. A lot of us that have moved abroad and had longevity abroad, we started at the basics with, let me travel to these places and see them first. Okay? Because obviously, like what I love about Ghana, you might not like it. You might not be able to deal with Ghana. You might not be able to deal with the UK. You might not be able to deal with France or Germany or any other place or Mexico. Go and check it first and see how it is. Once you get there and you agree that, man, then you compound, what I did, my particular migration expertise, I'd say, is frequenting the place. I visited the UK several times before I came and moved here. I visited Ghana umpteen times before I went to settle in Ghana. And I think that me doing that on a regular basis, it gave me confidence in the place. It gave me information. It gave me a comfort to go forward because I wasn't coming into a completely foreign country, completely ignorant. Okay. Those of us that have made the decision, it's an unpopular opinion. We don't look back and we don't miss it. We might miss y'all. Okay. We might miss our friends and family. We might miss our familiarity living in the city we grew up in and our school being down the street and all these things, some small things. But overall, the decision to move abroad, those of us that have done it, we stand on, we say with our full chest because, what is happening in the US is very sad. It's dangerous there, and I reckon that a lot of you are actually under a lot of stress and you don't realize it. And it may be displaying itself in various ways. You know, you're having headaches, you're low in mood, you, you know, feel sad a lot, you're tired all the time, you know, whatever. You can't sleep at night. Some of these things, I mean, I remember because obviously I'm currently in the UK, right? And so when I'm here, some of these things come back. Some of these things come back, and I'm like, damn, you know, it's just being in this setting, you know, and dealing with some of the things that go on here. It just part of it. Like, for instance, when I'm in Ghana, I rarely have a sleepless night. I rarely have a sleepless night. I get in the bed and I can literally fall right asleep. When I'm in England or America, I start the sleepless nights start coming. Worried about this, worried about that, and need money and got problems and this and this and this and this and this. And it's like when you get in the bed, you lay down, your mind is spinning, you cannot turn it off. I mean, it's been so bad. Some nights I'm up the entire night, like can't sleep at all. By the time 4 or 5 a.m. comes, I've got to, you know, get ready to get up. Another thing, you know, my friend mentioned to me the other day, I'm always sighing and shaking my head because, again, I'm thinking about this and I'm thinking about that. And then when I think about that, I think about the connecting, and I think about, you know, and I'm sighing and not even realizing that I'm sighing. You know, he told me the other day, he's like, Jeannie, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And I'm like, what you talking about? Oh, you're breathing really heavy. Oh yeah, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about that. It's just, you know, and so when you're in those environments, you wouldn't really know all the effects that the stress is having. And I can empathize with you guys because I can only imagine, you know, unless you are completely delusional and you have put out these things of your mind for your daily functioning. I mean, I would be concerned. I was even concerned when I was in the States last summer. I was there for a few months. One thing that I kept being extremely mindful about was road rage. You know, I was very, very careful on the roads because of road rage. I was like, I don't want to encounter a crazy driver. I don't want to have an altercation. I don't want to, you know, have anything because of how extreme some of this road rage stuff is. So I was in a position, in my opinion, I found it very difficult to unwind and relax. Another thing I noticed is I drink a lot more in I drink a lot more. If you guys know me personally, you know, yes, I'm a social drinker in Ghana. I drink on the weekends. I have a cocktail in the evenings, things like that. But in the UK, I need a little something like damn near every day to take the edge off. Stress. Stress. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, big shout. I got. Let me go through the chat room, guys. Are you here? What's up? Selena's in the chat room. She said, "Why did I leave the UK? I don't blame you for leaving." Um, Basically, Selena, I by the time I moved to the UK, you know, and again, I stand, you know, I stand on business to say I definitely prefer the UK to the US. I like Europe for a variety of reasons. Um, I love the public transportation system. You know, you can get around very, very easily here without having to drive. Unfortunately, in America, you've got to drive. And, you know, in most cases, unless you're outside of the big cities that have more public transportation options or just have proximity to where you need to be. You know what I mean? Because if you live somewhere like I lived in Ohio, you know, where your job is compared to where you live, it's very few people actually live in the communities where they work. A lot of people have a sizable commute when they live in states like Ohio and most American cities, because only a couple, like less than a handful, have train systems, have trams, you know, whatever that will allow people to live without having to have cars. So I really love the public transportation systems, you know, albeit we just had a major strike here in London last week that was off the hook. A historic strike where millions of people were trying to use buses and walk and bike. I mean, it was something that, I'll never forget. I mean, I was actually tickled and found it really exciting. I think it's because I knew that it's historic, and I'm like, man, I was here for this moment in time. But it was something that, I mean, you wouldn't see every day. I mean, it was incredible to see the amounts of Londoners, trying to navigate around this strike. But albeit without that, the transportation is top, not just here in the UK, but across Europe. I also love the easy travel. You can travel a lot. I mean, from the UK, you can get to France in 2 hours. You can get to Italy in 2 hours. You can go to Germany. You can go to Spain, Portugal. You can even go to Egypt. You get really good travel deals. So I've taken advantage of a lot of that. I also like the better quality food. Now, obviously, British people say, "Oh, it's not that much better," but I know for a fact, as living in America, there's a lot of harmful chemicals that have been allowed to be in our food, and it impacts our health in America. And they don't care because they make a lot of money through the pharmaceutical companies after you become sick or after you become obese, and they start medicating you for these various health problems. They're making the money. Meanwhile, here in the UK, where the government foots the bill, they do a lot of regulating as to what the people eat and portions and all that stuff, because quite frankly, they don't want to pay for your health crisis. They want their population to be relatively, healthy. I mean, and even with that, the NHS, the health service here is still strained. But I would say, those are some of the major regions that I moved from America to the UK. Also, the gun issue, you know what I mean? Gun violence is totally out of control in America, as we can see. XDMC, what's up, boo? XDMC is one of my long riding. I see you, man. Hey. Shout outs to XDMC with that super chat. I see you. Hold on. Let me get it up on the screen. Hold up. Wait a minute. I'm just trying to cover the story. You know what I'm saying? Big shout outs to XDMC. I see you, brother. You put your money where your mouth is. I appreciate that. So I had to give that history because I know sometimes, I have new viewers or people that don't know the whole story, the whole journey. So I give that context. So by the time I moved from America to the UK, there were definitely things I loved about the UK comparing to America, but there were some synonymous things. Hello. Can you guys guess what some of the synonymous things was? Hello. First of all, the non-Black people. The non-Black people and the racism and the racial construct. Okay. In America, the racism, the is very blatant, it's very loud, it's very in your face. The racism and the racial construct in England can be more covert, but it's still there. And I was tired of that. I was sick of that. And I realized that, being in these environments is just part of living here. We're never going to supersede the racial construct that they've put into place in their homelands. And that's just the bottom line. We can picket and cry and, protest and hashtag all we want, but it is what it is. So either if you're going to be here, you're going to put up and shut up. Or if you ain't the type like me to put up and shut up, you got to find some other way. And I came to a realization that for me, I like living in Black environments. Number two, the weather. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a winter baby. I'm not. My birthday is in June. I love tropics. My mother's from a tropical place. I want to live in the sun. Number three, the lifestyle. I can't do this 12-hour slave life, constantly for 50 years of my life. No. So I was working up to that decision. And when the COVID lockdowns came in 2020, that was the catalyst for me moving to Ghana in the way that I did, which was when the borders opened, I packed up my apartment and I moved. Prior to that, I was strategizing like maybe 6 months here, 6 months there. I hadn't really put everything into place. But after the lockdown, I said, you know what? I'm just going to roll the dice and see what I can make happen in Ghana. So, that has been the bulk of the story. And again, like I said, I just don't regret it. Living in Ghana, I think living in Ghana has added like years to my life. Like for real, because I feel optimistic about the future, even with various problems that go on in Ghana and, whatever. And actually, in many ways, for me, there's a simpler life available in Ghana, for me. And I like that because I think sometimes this lifestyle, a lot of things are projected onto us as Black women, as whatever, at college educated, you everybody's wanting you to go for this and go for that, and they project that on that, and you may not want it. There's some of you in here, you don't want the picket fence and the dogs. You don't want the big car. You don't want the American dream. You don't want, to buy some 500,000 pound house. You don't want none of that stuff. But, your parents want it for you. Your friends think you should have it. Society is telling you you're not successful if you don't have it. So sometimes those expectations, in Ghana, I feel like I have a good day when I wake up, I see the sunshine, and maybe I go eat my favorite meal and I have a chat with my neighbor. Like my day is fulfilled, you know? So for me, the lifestyle, the pace is great in Ghana. And so, yeah, I hope I've answered your question. Let me get into the chat room and see what else you guys are there. Special shout outs again to Mr. XDMC. He always hold me down. Man, I ain't seen you in a grip. Thank you so much for that super chat. All right, let me get into the comments. Guys, if you're here and you want to be greeted, let me see you in the chat room, please. We have over 20 of you here, so y'all need to get in this chat room. Americans in 2025 living abroad, none of them regret the decision. Take it from me. I'm just one out of many. That's like, whoo. And if I'm honest, I've also began to influence a lot of my personal friends and family, to begin to look into that. You know what I mean? Without saying too much, one of my family members recently got their British passport. Hello. And is making their plans. Another one of my very close friends from university recently relocated to Portugal, and she told me that I was one of the only people that supported her and, encouraged her. I want you guys, listen, I gave the example of a burning building the other day. If we saw a burning building, okay, irrespective, we knew obviously people might still be in there, our valuables might be in there. Most of us, common sense would tell us we're not going to go into the burning building. Okay, now some of you, I might have some firemen on my stream, ex-military, you feel like, yeah, I could still get in there and save somebody. All right, maybe 1 or 2% of my viewers might attempt it. Most of us would look at that burning ass building and say, I can't go back in. I just can't go. I know for a fact if I go in, I'm going to perish. And so I can't go back in. And that's how I see America. Not only that, just understanding that we have some options. We have some options that we were not educated on. We have some options that are not well known. We have some options that are not popular. And I feel that as someone who has seen these things, experienced some of these things, and can personally attest to how making those decisions have positively impacted my life, I feel compelled to get out here and shout it out and let my peers know, hey guys, if you're in similar situations as me, or you think similarly to me, or you're looking at your options, consider this. Because one of the reasons is this is exactly what I was looking for when I started making those decisions back in 2014. A friend of mine was the catalyst that said, have you ever thought about moving abroad? Have you ever thought about moving to England? At the time I was here, my second trip, and I was complaining to my friend, that Big shout outs. Okay, Dahomey, I see you, Dahomey. Thank you so much for the super chat. I was, complaining to one of my friends here in the UK that I wasn't ready to go back to the States. And he said, well, have you ever thought about moving abroad? Have you ever investigated? And I said, you know what? I haven't. And as I chased it up and investigated, I, began the process, and I told myself, okay, if everything goes well and I get an opportunity, then I'm going to go, and that's how it all started. And when that happened, I started, going online like anybody else, Googling, Black people in England, Americans in England. And all I would ever see would be white people. There were not a lot of people back in that day kind of cataloging their experience of moving abroad and what they did and how it went and all of that. And now that I'm in a different position and I'm actually doing these things, I want to repay it and share with you guys and encourage you guys, because our quality of life in America is not good. Even if you're a high earner, because some people correlate earning a lot of money with good life. Obviously, money is important, and it affords you comforts and luxuries and all those things. But there are some things that money can't buy, such as safety, such as being able to send your kid to school without worrying about active shooters, road rage, quality of food, weather, things like this. Your money, your millions in the bank ain't gonna nurse your gun wound from getting, shot up or something. Or the trauma, the constant trauma of seeing what's happening to people that look like you. Money cannot deal with some of these issues. And for that, you have to take stock of your environment. Okay, so big shout out to you guys. Okay, let me get back to this. Hello. What's up, Tony Africa? Big up, now on the continent for over 7 years. Big shout outs to Tony Africa. You see, I told you, Americans living abroad are like, yeah, no regrets. We're happy we did it. A lot of members of the diaspora living it up on the continent, loving it. You know what I mean? No regrets. And doesn't mean that it's a utopia, a perfect place. No, it doesn't mean that. But that just means that the trade-off, we're either willing to deal with it, it's manageable. We feel that we're gaining so much than what we, have to put up with on the alternative ends. That is still worth it, So big shout out to Tony Africa. It's good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Yes. Big shout outs. What's up? Let me see who else is here. Jennifer Edie says, graduation is next year. I am implementing my plans quarterly. Shout outs to you, honey, and I know you will get it done. Selena, it's not too late, honey pie. Selena says, I should have left the UK in 2008 and not listened to my dad. Sometimes, you have to get out of what other people have for you, especially if you are a child of immigrants, you know what I mean? Like your parents are African, or your parents are Latino, or your parents are from the Caribbean or things like that. And they've moved to these Western countries and they think they've given you, the best opportunity possible, because for them and their generation, moving abroad was like the Monty. And obviously for those of us that have grown up in these Western environments, our experience could be very different. And our parents can't relate because they think, hey, you should be grateful for this, and obviously perhaps you may have benefited from the environment. Definitely, I think if maybe your country was not safe when your parents moved. I know some Nigerians moved abroad because of the Biafra War. I know, there's some destabilization in Somalia and the Sudan and, various wars and conflicts or natural disasters. And some people move for those things. Some people move for asylum. They've been politically targeted and these things. And for that, definitely, I would say, hey, our parents, if your parents love you, your parents definitely want you to have a good life. They definitely want you to go far in the future. For them, going abroad was the way forward. So they would think that their kids are getting the best is available. Now, we know that the psychological toll that we pay in these environments is huge. And that's a lot of what our parents don't understand. Our parents don't understand the psychological price that we pay living in proximity with these folks and dealing with them our whole lives from our childhood all the way up to professional, et cetera, et cetera. And, for me, I think that's one of the reliefs of being in Ghana is not dealing with all of that psychological warfare is what I'm going to call it. But for you guys, you second and third generation folks, you know, you have to make that decision. You have to look at it comprehensively and say, I just don't think my life is going to matriculate here. And that's what after, I was very unhappy in my life in many, many areas at the time that I made that decision. And following a divorce, that was kind of like the last thing that was holding me there, because even I had told my ex-husband that I had plans to move abroad, before we got serious and got engaged. So, and that was one of the issues of the breakdown, was that I was serious about it and he wasn't. He wanted to stay where he was. So once that was over, I was like, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Like, this was the last thing that was kind of holding me, because I am, a traditional woman where my husband's input matters to me. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go rogue on him. I'm going to try to work as a team and, take him into consideration. So I was just in that state, like, well, I got to figure out what I'm going to do, get him on board, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, when he set me free, I was like, oh, I'm out. So sometimes you got to make those decisions for yourself, and you won't regret it. As you can see, people in the chat are saying they don't regret it. Big shout outs. What's up? Michael Pan says, I understand why British people say that the food is not good in England, because the country learned from America to sell junk food. Obviously, there's junk food here, sodas, candies, and fast food. A lot of American chains are here in the UK. McDonald's, KFC, Burger King, Wendy's, a lot of these things, Subway. But even in that, the ingredients are still different. There have been a lot of videos which compare, European products to American products and the components and all of that. Because like I said earlier in this broadcast, a lot of the chemicals that are used in American foods are permitted in American foods, such as some of the preservatives, the high fructose corn syrups, other chemicals and all these things. They're illegal here, So that means that these companies have to use better ingredients, even though, yes, on the scale, it's still fast food. It's still processed. It's still, whatever. It is not as bad as what American food components are. And you also just see the difference, in terms of like obesity. You will see, because of the portions in America, and like sugar is a big problem. They put a lot of these corn syrups and everything, and it leads to obesity, and I had a huge weight gain myself when I came to the States last summer. From partaking in a lot of things I don't normally eat anymore, and I just packed on the pounds, and been struggling with that for the better part of a year. So yeah, but British people here, they will still say, the food is still, not the best, but it is still better. What's up, Jessica? I see you. I'm going through the chat room, guys. If you want to be greeted, leave me something. Big shout outs. What's up? I'm happy to see Dahomey representing from North Carolina. Thank you so much, sweetheart. And thank you for that super chat. Appreciate you. Yes. Philip Scott said, brothers and sisters are still suffering from anti-Black racism in England. I don't see myself moving there because of anti-Black racism is still racism. Africa is better. Obviously, hey, if you can, my journey ain't your journey, and so on and so forth. It's nice to have options. I definitely wouldn't tell you everybody, hey, pivot. I had to do that. I had to pivot from the UK to the continent. I strategically did that because I knew that the pound was more valuable than the dollar. I knew I could frequently travel to Ghana, and I did that back and forth until I was ready to come and settle down here for about 4 years. I took my first trip to Ghana in 2016, and then I moved in October of 2020. Right after the borders opened, I moved to Ghana. So, that's the process that I use. If some people are able to go straight from A to B, hey, great. That's what and I mean, obviously, for me, I know that I'm not going to just move to Ghana and be in Ghana exclusively. I'm still a world traveler. I frequent the UK, even though I live in Ghana. And for me, having that option to pivot to the UK instead of having to go to America if I need to raise money or go take care of things, to me, that's winning. You know what I mean? So I'm happy that I have the option to come to the UK if need be, and that everything isn't in America for me, so that's another thing to consider. I mean, I know, for instance, my homie, Prince Dinas Samir, he has multiple citizenships now. He has one in Sierra Leone, he has one in Nigeria, he's got his American, passport and things like that. So it's nice to have options. And I know our people are very groomed and finite in our thinking, which I see it when people talk about traveling, when people talk about moving. It's just like, or even when they see that I've traveled, oh, well, you left Ghana, did you move back? Are you back in? No, I live a flexible life. You know what I mean? I don't have to, just because my base is in Ghana doesn't mean I'm going to be in Ghana, forever, all the time. You know what I'm saying? I've been world traveling before I moved there. Just because I moved there doesn't mean that I'm never going to move my feet. You know what I'm saying? I have family abroad. I got business. I got this and that. I got events. I'm a musician, so it's just a different location to pivot from wherever you are. And that's why I have structured it the way that I've structured it. But, Phil Scott is definitely correct in the respect that, yeah, racism is everywhere. That's not black. Period. Okay, because you're going to deal with it in Asia. You're going to deal with it in the Middle East. You're going to deal with Australia. You might deal with it I can't speak in the Latin America world, but you're probably going to deal with it there. Because I know they deal with it there. You know what I mean? The only place that you can probably lessen your interaction with racism is in black majority places, period. But learning how to utilize things for what they are good for is a very, very powerful tool. And that's all I'm doing. What's up, S.A. Smith? I see you there, sweetheart. Yes, I'm doing shout outs if you are here. Yes, 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 yes. Appreciate it. Michael Penn, you always want to talk about Philip Scott. You got to go to his channel, okay? Alex, hey, what's up? What's up, sweetheart? My salon bobo in the building. Yes, yes, yes. Big shout outs. What's up, Prince Conadu? I see you there. Prince Conadu says African countries are opening up their borders for free movement within Africa. That presents a lot of options for diasporans and continental Africans. And this is beautiful. Prince Conadu, this is a wonderful point. Thank you for bringing this up. This is beautiful that we are living in a time where, we're doing this reconnection to the motherland and we're actually seeing things change. For a lot of people, their spectrum of change is very unrealistic. They expect, Ghana to catch up in a year. They expect Nigeria to transform in a year, or Burkina Faso. It's going to be a process, but it's beautiful that we get to witness it and we see things taking shape and we see things changing. It gives a lot of hope, at least for me, because in all these years and decades in the Western world, the change that we've seen is negative. We've seen the depreciation of a lot of things in those environments. So it's very positive to see positive change, a hopeful change in Africa, and we're there and we can benefit from it. And, it's a wonderful thing. So big shout out. Thank you for that message, Prince Conadu. Yes, yes, yes. What's up, family? If you're here. Yes, yes, yes. Well, bro, listen, I'm African, fam. I am African. Are you okay? I come from the motherland. Okay, that's where I come from. I'm a product of the diaspora, but the root is all still the same. So I don't get into semantics. I've already mentioned on here that my mother's from Bermuda. You know what I mean? But I'm born and raised in America. But for me, all roads lead back to the continent. So that's where I see my indigenous homeland to be. And that's why, I've reconnected and doing what I need to do on the motherland. Okay. So I hope that answers your question. Hello. Yes, 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 yes. Shout outs. Z-Trick says my ancestors are from Europe, but I never claim it as my home. Well, I mean, different strokes for different folks. I mean, I guess, I feel you because obviously, like I said, I'm born and raised in America, but I really don't see it as my home. And the reason I don't see it as my home is because of the way I've been treated. I mean, I've been made to understand that it's not my home. And the way I've matriculated through society, like everything's a fight and everything's a struggle. And to me, that's just indicative of it not being my home. So I've always understood that I've always understood the concept of the diaspora, which is our people have been dispersed all around the world. And, I've traveled a lot. I've learned a lot of history and seen a lot of artifacts. The last weekend here in London, I went to the National Maritime Museum. By the way, if you're coming to the UK or you live in the UK, or you live in London, you probably know they have a lot of free museums here, which are fantastic. I go to the museums on the weekends when I have time and see some of these things. So I went to the Maritime Museum and I was seeing how the British was just all over the world, taking their ships all over the world. And, this is also how a lot of the diaspora got dispersed all around the world. So I've always understood that, our people come from the African continent, one way, shape, or form. Whether you are from Latin America, whether you grew up in the Caribbean, whether you're in America or Europe or whatever, it all goes back to the motherland. So for me, I just bypass all the semantics and go back to the continent. So yes, I'm a product of the diaspora. I was not born and raised in Africa, but like the epic, iconic Dr. Kwame Nkrumah says, I'm not African because I was born in Africa. Hello. I'm African because Africa was born in me. Shout outs to the family. Oh, what's up? What's up? What's up? Big shout outs. Yes, yes, yes. All right, guys. I appreciate the family for being here with me today. I had to do those comments. Yes, it's me. A special shout outs again to my super chat donors. You guys was in the building, and it was so good to see you guys. Both of my super chat donors, XDMC and Dahomey, they are long-standing family members of the African Superstar platform. They've been with me now for years. They've been rocking with me legit for years. This platform here on YouTube is my second channel. My original platform was started in 2013 and YouTube took it in 2021 saying I broke community guidelines, but basically I am an influential person. Hello. And you guys should wonder why they don't want me promoting you to do this. They don't want us to see our options and overcome this like class system that they have created for us, and some of us understand that we deserve a decent quality of life. And some of us have invested and worked hard to achieve that. And if you are someone who feels like, man, I'm going nowhere, I'm spinning my wheels and I'm getting nowhere, then you may need to just expand your horizons, because what you need and what you want and what you are trying to obtain, it may be available, but it may just be available in some other form or fashion. You feel me? So I appreciate those of you guys that rock with me through this live stream. Shout outs to all the people that are going to see the playback. If you are a fellow American, hello, expat living abroad, living in Africa, living in Asia, Latin America, whatever, Europe, wherever you've moved from outside of America, leave your experiences in the comment box. Let other people know, hey, I also made this decision. African Superstar is right. It was for the best. It was the best move. And let me also say this before I close, because some of you will rebut and say, well, such and such went to Ghana and it didn't work out. Such and such, they had to move back to America. A lot of that we can attribute to poor planning. And I've talked about it extensively here because let me say this, okay? Nobody, you know, decides to make such a huge movement and plans to spend all this money moving and shipping your stuff and doing immigration. Nobody does that with intentions of going back to America. If you plan on going back to America, then you will retain some of your stuff. You wouldn't sell your house. Maybe you'll rent it out. You might keep your business going. You might just have somebody working it out for you. You would keep some assets available because you know that, yeah, okay, either I'm going to go back or I need to go to and fro and things like that. So when you see people that have liquidated all their assets, shipped all their stuff, sold their car, sold their house, and all this stuff, and they move abroad, and then, 6 months later, a year later, whatever, they're saying, well, I've got to go back. A lot of that has to do with planning. Or it could even also be situations. You've moved abroad with your situation as it is, and things have changed, business has failed, relationships have broken up, whatever, and now you have to backpedal. I'm just telling you, those people didn't move abroad with the understanding that they were going to retire. They didn't. Something came up to lead them to that. And very few of them will say, I moved abroad and it made me miss America so much because my life was so much better in America. So I went back because life abroad doesn't compare. No. All you do is go through this YouTube, you're going to see countless thousands of Americans that talk about how their life has improved since moving abroad, how their mental health has improved since moving abroad, how they've lost weight, how they have a better social life, how their health has improved, how their quality of life has improved. That's all that's what I see. And the people, again, that fail, I usually can watch their videos or whatever and pick, eat the meat and spit the bones because I know what it is. I know what it is. And if you just position yourself well, if you just try to be strategic about your move, then that wouldn't necessarily have to be your case. In as much we don't know the future and we can't anticipate everything that could come up in our future. But if you build a really good structure and you ask yourself the difficult questions, okay, how am I going to support myself abroad? What am I going to do in an emergency? What's my game plan there? Am I living there? Am I going to come and go? If you work out some of those questions before, this one's for Jennifer Edie. You work out some of these things before you make your move. Then if you're confronted with those issues when you move abroad, you've already kind of, had the concepts as to what would I do in those situations. You know what I mean? So anyway, guys, yeah, I've been with y'all for a long time. Hello. Make sure you have hit the lights. Hello. Yes. What's up? Oh man, there's more comments. Okay, let's see here. Big shout outs to the family. The homie says, I'm glad you said you're African. I'm not sure what this FBA is all about. It's a divisive situation. Well, hey, for me, it's always been very obvious that, it's just always been very obvious. I don't struggle with that. I know some people do struggle with that. And I think a lot of people struggle with that because they're ignorant about Africa. They don't even know what the place is like, and they simply don't want to be associated with somewhere they have negative perspectives about. Because obviously, if you went to Africa and you saw what it was like, in some cases, you would be like, damn, this is way better than even where I'm coming from. You know what I'm saying? Like, the life I'm living, the life I have in Ghana, I can't even live in America or the UK. Seriously. Like, I live a very good life in a great location. That lifestyle, the lifestyle I have in Ghana would take me millions of dollars to live like that here, because first of all, the weather alone, which again is something money can't buy, being able to live in a tropical climate around beaches, having access to beaches, mountains, waterfalls, all this type of stuff. In America, you need to be living in certain states that are some of the most expensive states to live. living in a posh neighborhood, more expensive. Just the lifestyle, you know what I'm saying? Just the lifestyle. I mean, and obviously the food in America, in Ghana, is organic. So if you're gonna eat that same kind of quality of food in the Western world, you're gonna spend more money for that same kind of food. Fresh fruits that's never been processed, meat that's not been processed, home cooked food everywhere that you go. You're gonna pay extra for that stuff. Superstar Bella says, what people need to understand is there are no jobs in African countries. You are the job. This is just a basic of economy. Okay. If economy of a country is struggling, it doesn't make sense to look for a job in that country because the jobs may be scarce or hard to get. Now, if you create a business, you're going to do what? Generate jobs, and that will overall help the economy. So I would definitely encourage a lot of you, that are looking, trying to figure out the financial edge of living in the motherland. If you aren't entrepreneurial or you don't know that, either you can learn a skill, or something like that, or you can try to automate your current business or get some kind of online income or do something remote, but you definitely need to address your income. And I mean, for some of you, the other thing might be you come and go. So for me, like sometimes I come to work over the summer in the UK, in America, and use that capital. Or I have my YouTube, or I offer tours. You know what I'm saying? You have to be creative. But yeah, I agree with Superstar Bella. You come and looking for jobs in the motherland ain't gonna get it popping. All right, guys. Prince kind of do, if it doesn't work for you in the first time, you can go back, regroup, and come back if you want to. Absolutely. And what does it mean? What does it mean? FBA have their roots here in America, unlike you. That's what you think. Go check your DNA, bro, and see where the roots originate. That's what I'm going to say as I get ready to close, because of course, obviously, when a lot of these people have this argument, well, I'm from America, my roots, my lineage starts here, I'm not from Africa, I don't come from any other place. But then when they take these DNA tests, their DNA test is connecting them right back to the motherland. But then they say, no, those DNA tests are not accurate and all of that. But these DNA tests are the same ones they do for paternity. They're the same ones they use for crime and all that stuff. But somehow, when it comes to tracing your heritage, that does not connect you directly back to America. Because apart from the Native Americans, hello, which are what? I think those Native Americans are actually Mexicans, I think, or Latinos, basically. Because I think a lot of them they migrated up from the Mexican Latin America. Okay, but apart from them, all the whites in America and all the blacks in America came from overseas. Okay, when those people from England came, they were immigrants. Okay, they did not just come up in America, and we can't ever forget it. That's the origins of the whole damn thing. That the only people that was there was the Native Americans. They were the ones that were there. And I'm not really trying to get into this, and they got eradicated. They got eradicated when the Europeans came. The Europeans eradicated them. So where do these Native American black people come from when the actual Native Americans that were there when the Europeans came and killed them all? How did those black Native Americans survive when the actual Native Americans are gone? And the actual Native Americans live on reservations. They know their tribes. They know their language and all that stuff. But the black Native Americans they don't have those connections. I don't know. But for me, it's very clear. I never lose sight of the fact, wherever I am, I'm still an extension of the motherland. I'm still an extension of Africa. People that come from the Caribbean, they're not indigenous to the Caribbean. Their DNA, again, is going to connect them right back to the motherland. Just because you shift location, it doesn't change your ethnicity. It doesn't change, whatever. But this is just basic, you know what I'm saying? This is basic history, basically. All right, fam, I gotta go. It's been long. Until we meet again, stay black and true. If you ain't black, just stay true.